Okay, hey folks, it's that time of the month again, and I have another couple of Visionary Realms legends with me today. I have lead programmer Kyle Olsen and senior programmer Robert Crane. G'day, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, how you going?
Pleasure. We've had Kyle on before, but first time for Robert, so great to have you on board, mate.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's go. We've got a fair few questions here too. It's only one page, but lots of questions condensed into some posts. So we'll get through as many as we can, guys, in the same format as usual, and try to open up at the end to a few live questions if we can get to them. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, Rob, have you given thought to internal tools you might want to work on in the future in regards to RMT and how to combat it, which, for those who don't know, is real money transfer?
I haven't really given any thought. Maybe that's a good one to pass to Kyle because it's more of his domain, I think, with the RMT stuff.
I'm going to have controversial opinions on RMT because I think a lot of the gaming community actually dislikes it, whereas I kind of like RMT in games. I think it gives a neat incentive to your hardcore player base, but that being said, that's not something that Pantheon has really talked about combating. So I'm not sure we can answer that specifically.
No, that's it. Not yet. It will become something that we kind of talk about as a team closer towards release. But yeah, I think things like basically account selling, all that kind of stuff, gold farming and gold selling, it's one of those things that no developer or company has ever been able to stamp out, or nor will they ever be able to. It's embedded. People are going to grind gold and they're going to want to sell it for real money if they're good at it. It's our job to make it as hard as possible so they can't just flood the market and destroy our economy. But yeah, there's some things with EMT that I think are a little bit on the grey side and more accepted than others. But yeah, that's something we'll get to later on.
I do think RuneScape has sort of paved the way in terms of what can be done. It's obviously not perfect, and they've pissed a lot of people off in what they've done, but they've done quite a good job in terms of combating botting and things like that, especially.
They have.
That's the kind of thing that we're going to have to look at ourselves as well.
Yeah. I don't know what program they use or how they catch, but they are pretty efficient in catching bots. And with the Grand Exchange and the way they do their economy, they've done a pretty good job. So hopefully we can do something like that for us.
Indeed.
All right, sticking with the theme from last Roundtable, what was the most challenging to implement ideas you've been asked to program? The one that gets you to your desk and you think, oh boy, has he lost his mind? We'll start with Rob.
Okay.
So has one of the team come to you from one of the departments and gone, hey, we need this, and you've just kind of gone, God, what are we going to do?
I think we might have lost Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't present on the push to talk properly. I was just going to say, if that's referring to Jopper, then I stopped asking that question a few years ago. He kind of asks a lot of things, and we push back sometimes, but most of the times, actually, it's quite easy to implement, just time-consuming more than difficult to push back on. So, it's been pretty good so far.
Yeah, cool. And what about you, Cole?
Here, at least, the designers have a decent head on their shoulders. They're not asking for things that are really out there. They know kind of what's possible and what's not relatively already. So we don't get any crazy asks. But I've got one from a previous job, at least, a VR title, where I was asked to do a MVP, the minimum viable product for a city destruction game. Think of like Rampage or something like that, but 3D. And we had 6 weeks to build an entirely destructible environment. And then 3 weeks in, we had a brainstorming session, and they were like, okay, we also want multiplayer now. So we had 3 weeks to finish that title, which was more than just an MVP, because we ended up spinning up artists and stuff, because it was actually quite fun. And then we had 3 weeks to implement networking and the rest of the game. So that was challenging.
I can imagine. All right, so what is one of the most exciting challenges you've overcome or problems you've been able to find a creative solution to? We'll start with you, Kyle.
Networking for me. So Unity's been pushing heavily on the job system and burst compiler recently, and getting a lot of our network code to play nice with that has been really rewarding and fun. And testing that at scale is pretty impressive what you can pull off using some of that new tech. And you guys are going to be the beneficiaries of that as well.
Yeah, nice, man. What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I wish this push to talk button on the phone was a bit bigger. But I was going to say writing our own flow graph system was challenging but very rewarding. Think of it in terms of like Unreal's blueprint system. So we wrote our own version of that, which controls a lot of the features in the game. So, yeah, challenging but very rewarding.
Yeah, awesome, man. Here we go. How is it even possible for two programmers to write an MMO? That's insane. I don't really think this is a proper question, but
I think there's a sort of a bit of a misconception in an MMO.
Yeah.
In MMO development, at least, that a lot of it is on the programmers. There is, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of work. But we develop a lot of tooling, right? An MMO, the difficulty of an MMO comes from the scale and the scope of the content and the art. So yes, we need to have solid foundations so that things can be built upon properly with the tools and that the designers aren't constantly breaking things. But the big mountain of work comes from the content development as opposed to a lot of the code. As long as the code in place is properly built, that is.
Yeah, nice, man.
Yeah, I'll just follow up with that, with what Kyle said, and that is that it's imperative that from the start you have to get your framework, your foundation set up properly, and like two programmers can definitely. I wouldn't say you can do a whole game, although if you had enough time you probably could. But as long as the roots, the foundation is set up properly, which is we struggled with a bit in the past, but now we've got it set up really well. It leads to be able to expand the team without tying yourself in knots later on. So that's where we've been spending a lot of our time, is just getting that foundation so solid that we know that we can expand a team and it will just all happen properly from now on.
Think of it sort of like building up guardrails so that we can scale up and people can't leave those guardrails that we've built. We have sandboxed environments that developers can program in, that they're not working at such a low level that they get confused and break things. They're working in our own systems that we've developed for the game. Same with designers. We can bring juniors on board without bringing everything down.
Yeah, nice, man. You guys are doing an amazing job too.
We also, Kyle and I work insane hours. Like, it's pretty not uncommon for Kyle and I to work 100 hours a week and think nothing of it. I mean, we are so dedicated to this game. We put in every single hour we can into this game because we love it. And so we're probably doing the work of maybe 4 or 5. I don't want to overstate us, but in reality, this is all we do. This is day and night. This is all we do. And that's why we can kind of get away with it at the moment with just Kyle and I doing everything.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
Yep.
All right, so this question's for Robert. Kyle's already answered his question last time. The secret to getting past a problem if you're just stuck and you don't know what to do. Kyle, likes to lay on the couch in the pitch black, listen to music, Spotify, crank some tunes, and just let his imagination go wild. Rob, what's yours, man?
Yeah, this is actually an easy one. I just asked Kyle. And I'm stuck. I get on a call with Kyle and we talk it out and we kind of visualize the problem in our head. We throw ideas back and forth until we've really got an idea of the proper way of doing it. Then I feel nice and relaxed and comfortable. I can sit back and I can code it, and then I review it past Kyle. He normally signs off on it, and it's good to go.
That's awesome. Great answer. Okay, so can you provide us an example, excuse me, and or story on a task that had a pretty rough roadblock or two? And if you can you please elaborate? So something that was challenging that gave you a bit of a roadblock along the way that was, yeah.
You got a good one, Rob?
Not really. I mean, one of the biggest roadblocks that we've had is our networking, and I think just so much of our issues have stemmed from that. I mean, it's been, what we've got is great. It's been able to hold us for as long as it has, but we've known for a long time that we need to rip that networking code out and put in our own networking code, or Kyle's networking code. And I think as far as roadblocks go, yeah, I don't think there's anything bigger than the networking stuff right now.
Yeah, nice. What about you, Kyle?
Earlier on when I first joined, there was discussions of doing some wholesale refactoring of a lot of systems. I'm not sure if that it counts as necessarily a roadblock, but that turned into, I mean, that was 2-3 months of, yeah, 250,000 lines of code being rebuilt. So that was a lot of work for sure.
We kept you very busy.
Yeah.
We actually, it's got a nickname. We called it the Great Cull, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah. Everything, all the remnants of that refactor now live in that one legacy class. It's been chopped down bit by bit. We've been able to get that down to like 500-600 lines of legacy code is all we have left for that refactor now. So just a couple more systems that need rebuilt, and we'll be on pretty solid footing. The last thing that really needs to be refactored majorly, I'd say, is the terrain streaming. We've been chopping away at the networking for quite a while, just sort of laying the foundations for that big push later. And that's,
nice.
We're pretty close now.
Yeah, good stuff. So let's go with the next one, which is, what is your favorite feature that you've implemented? And we'll go with Rob.
That's a tough one because there's quite a few, but I'm going to go with the build machine, because before the build machine was online, we actually had one of the programmers had to jump on and get latest and then do the builds by hand and then deploy them, and it was just a mess. And then quite a while ago, I wrote a pretty solid build machine that just, continuous integration. It just did what it had to do. It allowed, because of the time zone differences as well, it allowed anyone that needed to check in code to get a build up within, well, at the time it was like 10-minute turnaround to get a new version of the game out. It just made such a big difference to iterating on features and testing things that it was just one of those things. And we're just about to create build machine version 2 soon, which is going to be even better.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. And how about you, Kyle?
I love the ability system that we've made to replace the other one. It's similar to like what Rob was saying about the blueprints-like system. It's pretty cool. It's a visual scripting kind of designer-driven tool where you can build abilities just by connecting nodes and dragging them together and stuff. It's pretty neat. I'm a pretty big fan of it. Besides that, I mean, obviously the networking code, I love that stuff. So
yeah, awesome,
but I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over.
I suppose it must be hard for you guys too. You do make a lot of tools and features like that go in. So it's like trying to pick between your children, which one's your favorite.
Yeah,
but I know a couple of the standouts you've mentioned have been an amazing help for the team. All right, so what is the feature not yet implemented that you're most looking forward to working on? This is a little bit of a dig for a bean, so careful how you answer this.
What do you got, Rob? Anything?
Okay, so one of the features that I'm working on right now is the new terrain pipeline. And I need to explain, because there was a little bit of confusion in Discord that I noticed as well, and that is that we're not talking about automating, creating new zones or terrains. We're talking about if you could imagine that the terrain has been created by Jimmy or whoever, and it takes all of that data, and something has to happen to that data to get it to a state where the game can stream it in. So it's more performant. So it's going to be my job, or it's currently my job, to break up that world and compile it into buildable pieces so that it's got different level of detail. It combines materials and cave kits and everything that can be packaged up into bite-sized pieces for the terrain streaming system that Kyle's going to be doing soon. To manage that data and make it, ready to go. So it's a big project, but it's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. Do you have anything to add, Kyle?
And I'm 100% most looking forward to implementing that terrain streaming system right now. That's the next big ticket item. Right now, I'm working on monk animation support and monk combat resource implementation. But the next major task on my plate is going to be the terrain streaming system to replace the very heavy scene systems that we have in the game right now. That basically removes the need for the forced need to show load screens and things like that. We can stream the entire world around the player as they walk around and stuff. So we still will have zone boundaries and stuff in terms of gameplay, but it removes the requirement for having hard zone boundaries, right? That's nice. A huge step in the right direction for us. It'll simplify our build process as well. Yes. Greatly. A huge chunk of our build time comes down to these monolithic scenes that need to be chopped up for the build. So that will go away, and we'll just build individual assets. This is a step in the direction for streaming individual assets as well to you. So if you say you load into a zone and we've updated a tree, we can stream just that tree into you live. You don't need to leave the game and patch it, stuff like that. So it's just a lot of benefits moving in this direction.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so this is going to both of you, but we'll do one at a time. I think it'll be a quick answer. But what is your involvement in testing sessions? So I think they're referring to pre-alpha. Are you
at the very least, I'm in there invisible every time.
Yeah.
If not, I'm on another account joining in a group just with somebody else and you don't know it's me.
That's exactly the same as me, man. Are you there monitoring and analyzing issues in real time, like stability? Does each testing session lead to a lot of time spent implementing fixes and improvements?
Oh, yeah. We're always monitoring performance while they're running. The last session that went all night and stuff, obviously, when people are asleep or not, but generally for most of these sessions, there are several people in game with GM tags or not, playing and possibly invisible, watching you guys. We're all over that.
Yeah, man. I've got a couple of guildies and mates that I play with regularly that when we go into testing, they're VIP as well, so we get in and group up, and I'll either go in under a character name or just on Kilsin, but I'll play around with GM hacks so I can be unkillable. There's some fun and watch everyone and quickly fly off and help someone get unstuck and then fly back to the group. So that's it's a lot of fun. A lot of us do that from the team too.
Wait,
from the other
that
side.
might have been my character, DM Harms. There's a good chance that was me.
Yeah, I was going to say, from the other side of it as well is I like to jump on the servers themselves and check performance rates on CPUs, memory usage, all that sort of thing. So I don't really jump into game that often, but I'm there at the back end just monitoring performance and seeing our processes run away and crash the servers and all that sort of stuff. And so there's a couple of sides to it.
Yeah, nice, man. Okay, so moving on, how did you arrive at your estimate of the time needed to implement the netcode? In brackets, I think Joppa said around 2 months, ? So how confident are you regarding that estimate, and how did you come to popping that number out?
So it was actually much longer initially. So like I kind of mentioned before, the network refactor is being done in stages, you could say, I guess. There's an overarching framework like an architecture that I'm going for that's sort of agnostic of the underlying networking that it's built upon, and that's what I'm getting in place first. So I'm pulling apart. How to explain it? Code can be like really tightly coupled together sometimes, where if you change one thing, it sort of breaks other stuff. What I'm attempting to do is pull apart the code that governs the network from the part that governs the gameplay. And so they don't have direct dependencies upon each other. So in that sense, I'm sort of refactoring the networking as we go, but I'm leaving the network in place as it is, so that once it's been decoupled from the underlying layer, you can sort of pull the rug out from under it and replace it with the other thing really quick. And that's the idea. So it's a long process. That 2-month window that we've arrived at now is after a lot of that refactoring work has been done already on top of that underlying network layer, you could call it. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
No, it does. Good stuff, man. That's a good analogy too.
Yeah, we're rebuilding the car while it's moving. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything to add, Rob?
No, not really. I mean, this is definitely Kyle's territory. I'll be working in parallel to him on other systems, which hopefully won't, affect like Kyle too much. Although he is, rewriting a lot of stuff underneath me in a way, but it should be good. I mean, the way that he's going to approach it is very clean. The other thing to mention, of course, is that when we say like it's going to take 2 months to do the network, it's not just writing network code that takes 2 months. Like Kyle said, it's trying to create a support structure that is going to be the most optimal for a networking solution, Kyle's network solution, and things have to be tweaked and redesigned to make sure that's enforced. So it's like a multi-stage process to get the networking in, but it's, like I said before, it's imperative. We need to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sweet, man. Okay, so nice, fun question. Starting with Rob, what attracted you to this game and working for VR?
Initially, it was because a friend worked at VR, and I wanted to work with him again. So he kind of got me in. I had been working with him for like 20 years or something, on and off. So it was great to come back and work with him as well. But after a while, it was the law that kept me here. So I'll have to blame JN for that. It was just, it's just such a great concept for a game, and that's what really pulled me in, kept me here.
Yeah, nice, man. What about you, Kyle?
Jason. So I've worked a ton of jobs with Jason Wyman before, and he reached out to me and was wondering what I was doing, and I wasn't doing anything, so I hopped on. I actually initially joined just, to contribute, and I thought the game was cool, right? I didn't intend on being like full time or anything, but it sucked me in. I really enjoyed the people here. The project was fun, and here I am.
Yeah, nice, man. Good stuff. And I think everybody knows I was here because of Jopper. Same reason. In the community, loved the game, and jumped in to help out.
When I will say that when Kyle first started, I was like, I didn't tell you this, Kyle, but I was like, this guy, I don't know, he's a bit suspicious, a bit full of himself. But in the end, it turns out that he could back up his words, and he's just such an awesome programmer. I'm just so lucky to be working with him.
I appreciate it.
Some programmer love. All right, so how important are the tools that you guys have been making for the team? Okay. Well,
Rob, you got this one. Very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's critical. The better the tools, the faster the designers can work. And as you know, MMOs are all about the content. So the more you can improve the tools, the faster they can work, and the quicker we can get the game out. And I mean, that's just been my job I know I've been working at VR for over 4 years, like 4.5 years or something, but I haven't really taken the bull by the horns with tools until like the last couple of years. I think at some point, I think we announced that, we were rewriting the tools to make them a lot more cleaner and easier to use. And that's basically when I took over and I started creating our main tool called Odin, which controls designing all the zones, putting all of the data entry into the game. It's just like a jack of all trades tool. That's where I spend a lot of my time, just making the most optimizations. In fact, we just did Kyle and I just huge optimization pass on it and sped it up like, I don't know, what was it, 3 or 4 times the speed for
depends on the table, so, sometimes even more so than that.
Yeah, so it was crazy, and every time we can do that sort of thing, then we just help out the rest of the team. So I would say the tools are critical,
especially with Joppa's terrible internet connection he has to our tooling database. So any optimizations we can make help him even more than others.
All right, so little bit specific, but can you go into specific details as to what type of tools you've created that help the team? I think we've covered this mostly, but is there anything you guys want to add?
I mean, everything's tool based now, so anything that is in the game that you see that's content based is built by a designer with some sort of a tool. So all the abilities have a corresponding ability tool where you can visually program the effects and stuff. All the quests, all the perception dialogue, pop-ups, looting items, those are all designer tool driven. So everything
from, like we said, terrain pipeline tools, development tools, deployment tools, build machine, Odin, crafting, perception. They're all specific tools for the job. So it's plenty of tools out there. It keeps me busy.
Yeah, it certainly does. Both of you. All right, so how does the implementation of the URP affect the development of Pantheon?
Oh, huge. So one of the blockers that we've had is technical artist. We don't have somebody on the team anymore that can author shaders from scratch. Switching over to Unity's SRP enables us to have the shader graph, which is an industry standard way of authoring shaders. So people out of school have learned these tools already. It's shared between lots of different applications. It's a big enabler for us visually to bring on juniors or even intermediate level artists that don't have the technical expertise necessary to program something from scratch that can visually program shaders and shader graph, right? That's just one of the many facets that it unlocks, not to mention performance and shadow rendering, quality, distance rendering, just everything,
Yeah, nice.
It's the backbone of the most expensive part of the game. It's rendering.
So similar question, but how does the implementation of the network stack affect the development of Pantheon?
That's similar wins that we would have on the client, but for server side. So by far, server side's biggest CPU hog right now is creation and consumption of packets from the network layer. So swapping that out, we immediately optimize 90+% of our server's overhead right now. We've already optimized so much of the server runtime on top of that network layer it's not even the lowest hanging fruit anymore. It's like the entire thing is just the network CPU cycle. So that's going to be a massive win server side for us to replace.
Yeah, awesome, man. Okay, so Joppa mentioned that Monk, Ranger, and Summoner are very important classes to program and implement. Can you explain why getting these classes online is important to the development of Pantheon?
Not as well as he could, at least.
Yeah. He's done he did a bit of a job doing this anyway in one of our the latest roundtable, but it's basically the more classes we have, the more synergy, the more balance across the board. It's going to feel more whole, I suppose is the word for it. To have more options as well, a little bit more freedom to play how you like. So those classes are important. They're integral to Pantheon.
in my mind, I'd say like all of them are important.
As important, as each other.
I would struggle to prioritize one over the other. So I don't know how things are being chosen necessarily.
I think he just meant like what we've got in now. It's important to get these ones in as well, to have them all in together. Like I think the faster we can get every class that we've specified into the game and in a working kind of balanced way, that's important. Not just those three classes are important, but I think the way that person worded it is a little bit deceiving. But I understand what they mean. But yeah, all classes are important. We want to get those three in as fast as we can, so it can be a little bit more balanced. Okay, and
I think one more facet to that. Like Ranarus mentions, I think what Joppa might have been getting at is that he sees a lot of their toolkits as shared functionality across other classes. So getting them online simultaneously brings other classes online with minimal extra effort because of shared functionality.
Yeah, cool. And a question for myself. And thank you for including me. Do I have any programming experience? No, none whatsoever. I do a little bit of background in like I can change stuff in HTML. I can do like a few mods. I can alter some code in mods to make it work for me and how I like it. But yeah, other than that, absolutely not. Nothing.
Kilsin knows how to program muscles.
Yeah, that's actually, as a personal trainer, I can program for people. I can tell you program how you can build your muscles. Yes, all lose weight.
I love that.
That's fantastic, man. Good comparison. But no, in the development side of things for Pantheon, no, that's way out of my league. I'd probably just curl up in a border the corner and start crying if someone told me to do what Kyle and Rob do. That's crazy. All right, so let's move on. Sorry, I just lost my spot. I've changed my push to talk, which is now my back button, and I just lost my page. So now we're back on. All right, so is it difficult to have corpses retrieval mechanics in a game, and does it make an impact on server performance? As I assume there need to be a link from the player to the corpse until they retrieve it?
No, not really. It's not any more taxing. It's just not something that we've addressed since the refactor. There will definitely be that back in. There'll be basically no additional server overhead to have something like that. Really, all server overhead comes down to, does this thing need to happen every single tick or every frame of the server? And if it does, it's going to be expensive. But a corpse laying on the ground doesn't really have any per tick overhead generally. So you could have lots of them as long as it doesn't need to touch the corpse. If the server doesn't need to do anything with that corpse every single frame, virtually free, just memory cost.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have anything to add, Rob? Pretty straightforward, man.
Not really. It's good. I'm just having a chance to rest my voice while Kyle answers all these questions.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so is it possible to make a map mechanic for players tied to perception and for them to fill in and draw out stuff in game as they explore? So I think akin to a cartography kind of skill where they can bring something, draw and it saves, something like that.
Sure, I mean, technically possible. I think it's more of a design question whether we would do something like that or not. There's no reason we couldn't.
Yeah, I think they're just asking how difficult would that be for you guys to program the tools for it or to get that working. If, say, Joppa said, all right, this is what we want to do now, we definitely want this. Kyle and Rob, get it started. How would you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's intermediate. It's got database persisting to it and loading, so that's always one up on difficulty. Just need to make sure that orchestration is right. But I would say in the grand scheme of things, something like that would be fairly trivial compared to other things that we've had to do for the game already.
Yeah, awesome, man. Okay, so next question is, all classes introduced so far that have a combat resource, opportunity for Rogue as an example, have had their combat resources since PA1, except the Shaman. Why has Vision proven so difficult to implement? The vision for the Shaman been so difficult to implement that they haven't seen it actually working. And if it's proving difficult to implement, why not replace it with something easier but also useful?
It's actually not difficult to implement. That was one of the first things that I did when I joined the team prior to the refactor. So in the old ability system, I did implement the vision pool with the cooldown reduction and stuff. And I think even the UI was hooked up to it before. We've just never re-implemented it after the Shaman rebuild on the new tooling. It's just been something that we've overlooked. Just got to get it in.
Yeah, cool, man. Okay, so we'll go with Rob for this one first, since you've rested your voice, mate. What are some of the reasons you chose to work on an MMORPG over typically other games?
The last job I worked had an MMO background, but it was a pay-to-win mobile model, and I'm just sick of pay-to-win, that scheme. So I just wanted to work on a title that, didn't focus on money and focused on gameplay. That was just a big driving force for me.
Yeah, awesome, man. You just gathered a bunch of fans there too by saying that. Nice. What about you, Kyle?
So basically any game that I work on these days is going to be multiplayer in some regard. It's like almost a requirement for me. It's pretty much the only thing that I'm interested in terms of programming now is large scale networking. It's definitely like a passion of mine. So that's my drive in working on anything MMO or multiplayer related. That's just where my heart is.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so next question is about the network stack. So while the network stack is being done, what work can still be done by the team in progressing development of the game? Can new classes be implemented and tested out? Can quests lore be implemented and tested? More examples of what can be done. So
that's exactly why I'm not... Oh, sorry. I thought you were done there.
No, sorry. I was paused.
Was there more? My bad.
More examples of what can be done, so it isn't like a dead period for us. So everyone just stops work while that's being done. I think they're wondering like what the rest of the team does and what can still be done while that's going on.
That's why I'm not working on the network stack primarily right now, and we are focusing on tooling and class implementation to give runway for designers to have plenty to implement, whether it be data entry or actually new abilities for new classes or anything like that, where I can kind of go underwater, heads down, to get that last 2-month push of the network library swapped out. That's why I'm not working on that right now. It's to give everyone runway.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and also I'm not going underwater like Kyle is doing the networking code. That's him. So I'll be implementing new features still. I mean, like on my list is the terrain improvements, the pipeline crafting and harvesting, perception improvements, Odin improvements, the LFG tool, just lots of things that have been mentioned before that are on the list that I can do in parallel to what Kyle's doing.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. Okay, so this person's clearly saying, I don't understand how programming works to make things run smooth, but if Zone A is a dense forest with tons of swaying trees and dense foliage, and Zone B is a vast open plain with a ton of NPCs, how do those two dynamics impact performance, and what challenges do they present to you? Basically, also, how would each of those zones be limited by the current network stack, and how will they be opened up with the expanded one in the future?
I think there's another sort of misconception about network servers here as well. So they mentioned swaying trees, right? If you were looking at the game through the eyes of a server, you wouldn't actually see any trees. You would only see the collision representation of those trees. So a large dense forest, while you're running through it, might have lots of swaying trees and leaves, all that kind of stuff that you're seeing. That doesn't exist server side. It's just the part that you can collide with that exists there. So in performance sense, that's a lot lighter server side than what you have to run client side. the server side still has to run lots of AI routines for those NPCs that you're talking about in Zone B, but the dense forest just doesn't exist on the server. It's only on your computer.
Yeah, nice. So the Zone A versus Zone B. So NPCs versus forests. Basically, you're only looking at the outline of tree stumps versus actual NPCs that need to be calculated. You're saying server performance will be more densely populated on the character one.
The forest would essentially be free. It's sort of like, it's the same idea as that corpse being dead on the ground. The server doesn't need to do any per tick calculations for any of those trees. Generally, you might have some little things going on like growth or something like that, but generally the per tick or per frame overhead of all of those trees server sides is going to be 0 or near 0, versus the AIs that are calculating. They need to do routines. Gotcha. Is anyone near me? I need to cast abilities. All of this stuff is running server side. Even though they're not rendering a model for the AI, it's still a lot of processing that has to happen for that.
Perfect. So, and trees obviously not, but say a forest, you're going to have critters. So all those critters are NPCs and they would have routines.
Exactly.
So there you go. So a big city versus a dense forest, it would just depend on the ratio of like NPCs in each of them with the routines.
There's one more follow-up to that I see in chat. How does that work with harvesting wood and such? That's more of an event. So something happens and server processes the event as a one-off thing. Say I right-click the tree and a bar fills and the bar finishes filling. That's an event that processes server side as a one-off thing. It's not as a tree, I'm not checking every single tick. Am I done being harvested? Am I done being harvested? Or am I being harvested? Am I being harvested? Anything like that. You don't need those sorts of checks. It's begin harvesting, end harvesting, just two discrete events that happen on the server side. So you could have millions of trees that don't have any per tick overhead, but you can still go up and interact with them in an event sort of system.
That's awesome. That's good info. All right, so is there going to be a challenge to program the offensive and defensive targets in a way that the player can choose if they want their target to be an offensive or defensive target? For example, if I want to smack a friendly guard in the back of the head and try to run away, will I have a way to do that?
It's kind of a design question, but we have had a meeting about this. So the reputation system, I can't say if this is, oh God, I don't even know if this is publicly stated or not, but the reputation system in the game, you can become friendly, revered, exalted, those kinds of levels, right? And at any point you can declare war with the faction, essentially putting you at hated with them to say like, we are now fighting kind of thing. So you can fight friendly NPCs or neutral NPCs in that way, yeah, or at least in the future, there's a plan for it.
Yeah. Some are obviously going to be a lot harder. Guards are going to be, I would assume, be buffed in cities to be able to protect the citizens.
Probably a
and if you
bit of a death wish if you do that.
You might want to run real fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so has technology and internet speed advanced enough that it won't matter much which server we choose to play on? Could I choose an Aussie server from LA and still get 140 milliseconds response time?
Not 140. You're hitting physical limitations of infrastructure there. You'd probably get like 195 to 205, something like that.
I get around
an Australian server.
200 to 250 typically on an Aussie one.
So it'll probably be something like raw latency plus your server tick rate would be whatever shows up at. So you'll probably hit something around 200 ms connecting to an Australian server. And that being said, on the new netcode, Rob and I have spun up stress tests in an Australian server with me connecting from the US with hundreds of thousands of objects moving around, and we were still able to move around and it looked great. So if you really want to play with your friends in Australia, it shouldn't really be a problem. We do spell queuing and stuff like that. So if you're mashing on your buttons before a spell cast completes, the server is acknowledging that you're mashing on the buttons and tries to buffer the next spell that you're mashing right away, so there's not a 200 ms delay between one spell being cast and the next one being cast after that. So we do what we can to make it feel good.
Yeah, nice, man. I'm not sure about Rob, but I know like if I play say like Elder Scrolls Online or something like that, like my ping is basically around 200 to 240 on an American server, but it's worse on a European, so we always tend to go for American servers.
That's weird. I would have assumed it would have been better.
I don't have enough time to play games, Ben. I'm doing a game.
That's right. You're playing Pantheon development. That's a very in-depth game. Yeah. I know that's a very important question because that comes down to rating, min-maxing, all that kind of stuff. And I know being one of those people myself, when it comes to rating, 200, 240 ping is not cool. So server selection will be critical. But if you just want to have fun and play with your friends, then yeah, you can jump in different servers and it shouldn't be too bad.
It'll definitely be playable at 200 ping.
Yeah.
It won't be, esports. You're not going to want to be on 200 ping if you're pushing like high-end stuff, right? Like that's just... There's nothing you can do about that.
But that goes for anything in your game.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the coolest new tech or tool that has been created due to working on Pantheon? And we might start with Rob.
I'm trying to find my answer. Try Kyle first and then come back to me.
Man, that patcher, the new patcher is pretty cool, man. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, I guess that's part of the new build machine that I was mentioning before, that we've written our own client patcher and reworked the server patcher, and it's now nice and fast turnaround times for builds, as well as delta compressors, all of the differences between versions. It's just, it's hopefully the solution that we're going to be using come production time, but I mean, it's early days for it, but it's looking very, very promising at this point, and like we're almost done with it.
Nice, man. And what about you, Kyle?
Well, I mean, the same things before. The network stuff for me is so cool. I'm very jazzed about it, especially. So the V1 of the network stack didn't leverage the burst compiler or the job system internally in the like sort of main hot path of the library. It just made use of it for the interest management system. So detecting what objects are around a player. It's the system that would say like load all of these entities because they're near you kind of thing. That was burst compiled before. Gotcha. V2 of the library now burst compiled and jobified all the way through the hot path, all the serialization code, all the socket sending code, everything is all burst compiled. The reliability layer, we implemented KCP in jobs, and it's really nice. I gotta say, we've got a lot of SIMD implementations for the serialization as well. It's in my opinion nearing the theoretical performance of what you can hit with a UDP socket library, and it's just cool. That's all I can say. It's just really, really cool.
Nice, man. I love hearing you guys talk about this stuff. Okay.
I'll just add that. Sorry, I'll just add
go for it, man.
That to do just looking at the Discord here. If it's your first time downloading the game, yes, you'll have to still download the full client, but the client's going to be fairly small because most of our data, I hope I can say this, but most of the data is going to be cloud-based and streaming in. I think Kyle mentioned that before. So, we won't be bundling all of the data in the initial client. The client's going to stream as it's needed off the cloud, which means much smaller client sizes for the production build anyway.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you picked up on that because I was about to follow up with that question. Good stuff. And someone has no idea what Kyle said, but because you're so excited about it, he's excited. I love that.
I have that problem.
Someone's excited, so I'm excited. Let's go. I don't know what you said, but it sounds great. All right, so moving on to the next question. Some MMOs have an ability that is notorious for never working properly and being fixed every patch. For example, Shadow Cloak in SO, when the player is removed from stealth in unintended situations. I imagine this type of situation becomes more and more likely as additional systems and skills are brought online. And considering it must be given as to which events or statuses take precedent over others and what events are allowed to break, interrupt or affect different statuses, can you tell us anything about Pantheon's approach for resolving interactions between various skills and systems? Wow, that was a long question.
I can address it a bit. So in our ability sort of programming tool, the visual scripting tool, designers are able to do kind of anything that they want. That being said, the nodes that I provide them are very, how would you say, isolated, or not? That's not the right word. Like sandboxed or something. They're. It doesn't matter what inputs any individual node is given. It can't produce an error output generally. It might not work. The ability might not work, but it's. There's no infinite loops. They can't do like a while loop or a some of the more error-prone programming techniques or things that you could do just to blow your own foot off. It's not possible to do intentionally. So we've put those guardrails, like I was talking about, in place where they can just bounce around in the tool and do whatever they want, to the extent that we let them do with those nodes. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah,
it's just giving them enough flexibility without giving them the option of blowing their foot off. That's the trick.
Yeah, that's it, man. Do you have any experience with this, Rob? Something I think they mean like a class ability or something that is bugged in some way, and then more and more patches and updates and that kind of compound that issue to where it's never really fixed and it becomes harder and harder to kind of fix. Like, how do we kind of combat that? But I think it's as Kyle said.
Yeah, I just agree with what Kyle said, and also these things should have been sorted out well before it hit production, I think. So maybe it was just a lack of focus, to get that sorted. But we're going to have, a lot of time to test and iterate and make sure we get it right. Hopefully we don't have that sort of problem.
Yeah,
being real,
a lot of that's
we will.
QA too. Like if that slips through QA on a big game, especially something like ESO, when you've got offices all around the world with hundreds of staff, and something like that slips through, where they rely more on team-based testing rather than external, then you're probably going to have that problem.
Yeah.
But we have thousands of people that come in through pre-alpha to test for us and provide that kind of feedback. So it's a lot more likely we would catch something like that. But again, nothing's 100%.
They're guaranteed there'll be something. There's always going to be something.
Sure.
That's what I mean. It's not 100% guaranteed that we're not going to miss something, but things like that should get picked up by you guys, the VIPs and our testers during those phases.
Definitely.
And
if something ends up being a problem... Oh, go ahead, Rob. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to use this opportunity to say shout out to Kim and Mark, our lead QA.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does an amazing job, as always under pressure.
Never enough time to test.
No, always up against it. Never gets any appreciation from anybody, because it's a thankless job. So I just want to publicly shout out to them and say they're doing an awesome job and to keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. And it's been a while since I've had Kim on, so I can maybe look at Kim or Mark for the next one or the one after if they're available, but they are very, very busy individuals and they do a great job for us. All right, so from a programming standpoint, what do you think will be the most complicated class ability in the game?
It's got to be the traversable abilities. I think we've talked about these, but the Divine Woven Bridge, the Rogue's Rope, those kinds of things.
The big class defining abilities and stuff.
Definitely, yeah. Those will be challenging because they involve in-world collision, non-instantaneous creation. So for a bridge, sort of expanding as it goes. Multiple animation synchronization for the rope. That'll be challenging. And just lots of stuff.
Yeah, nice.
Those types of abilities will be a lot of work for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Anything to add, Rob?
No, I think Kyle covered it. It's not really my territory. It's definitely Kyle's. So he answered that well.
Yeah, cool, man. Okay, so this is for both of you. What are you currently working on, if you can talk about it?
Yeah, go first, Rob.
But as I mentioned, totally into the terrain pipeline at the moment, working along with Jimmy. and also just finishing off the new build machine and patching system and that side of house, and then rolling into probably crafting and harvesting, because I know Neff is chomping at the bit, wanting to to get those tools and get everything in so he can start testing everything that he's adding into the databases. So I'm sure that's probably going to be next on my list after I've finished these things.
Yeah, awesome, man. And Kyle?
Working on class-specific animations. So this is specific for the monk to be able to override individual animations for any given class. If you need to, the monk will make heavy use of this feature for basically all of their animations being custom. And their pool. So the gate pool for monks. Basically just monk stuff at the moment for me.
Very cool. I like it. Yep. Okay. Next question is, it seems silly, but one of the features they really liked about EQ was interactive world objects. So Keleth and lifts, gates, doors that actually open and closed. MMOs without these feel more static. This seems like an easy way of adding immersion, plus clicking on them is always fun. Are you planning to add these types of objects to Pantheon? I know without even being a developer or a programmer that doors and lifts are probably two of the hardest things to get right in any MMORPG. So yeah, well, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, we have interactables as it stands in doors that can be clicked on and they become solid and that kind of stuff when they're closed. So we have some of that already. That being said, we'll have a lot more. Lifts specifically, we don't have any of at the moment, but on the new network stack, at the very least, it won't be nearly as funky looking having people on lifts as it would be right now with the interpolation that they have. So that, yeah, it's no problem, really.
Awesome, man. I remember Vanguard and some of the lifts in there were just horrendous. You'd literally take 20, 30 minutes to try to get a group of 6 people up and down a lift without falling through it or missing it or coming back down again. It was crazy. The devs had a real struggle on their hands trying to fix those lifts. All right, so what feature have you most enjoyed or was most satisfying to implement? Go with Kyle.
Well, in terms of actual tangible rewards in game, it has to be the ability system for us, because I've seen Joppa and Tyler Sacred sit down and whip out like a huge chunk of a class. Just, it seemed like overnight to me. I go away for a week and I work on stuff and I have a meeting with them. It's like, yeah, we've got this online and working now. Can you help us get this working? Or we didn't manage to get this one ability working the way we want it, so I go in there and help a little bit more. It's just cool how much they can run with it and do stuff on their own. It's neat. I love it.
Yeah, awesome, man. What about you, Rob?
I'll just piggyback off what Kyle's saying, and the other side of it is that our flow graph system, which we call Pulse, the things that the designers have come up with for small quests and tasks on their own, and being able to just create these weird and wonderful interactions with NPCs that I never could have thought up. But if you give designers enough runway and enough tools, then they go crazy and they can come up with some really cool things. And that's just what's inspired me the most, is just some of the interesting ways that they've put flow graphs together to create some weird and wacky things in game. It's been great.
When you're programming it, it's like you have an idea in your head. It's like, this is how it should be used. But being a flexible tool that just has variable inputs and outputs, they can be combined however, right? So they come up with really weird combinations of stuff that, sometimes breaks things, but we have to support it. It's cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. And sorry for the people on the recording going to listen to that. My dog just barked really loudly and ran off. You guys missed it, but the recording's going to pick that up.
Oh.
All right, so what feature are you most looking forward to implementing? And we go with Rob.
I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but I've always been a huge fan of game art, and I think just with the work that Jimmy's been doing with terrains, and just working with him to like coming up to do the terrain pipeline and just getting that whole process in place and taking like moving on from our grey boxing into just something that's just going to blow everyone away with the visual fidelity of what our zone's going to look like soon. It's just it's very inspiring, and I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be a big win for us, man. Getting our zones online, getting the world built.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, I think we've answered this one kind of already in a way. Couple times.
Yeah, it was
not really.
Kind of built into another question. I'm sorry if there are double ups. There's a lot. We've still got a fair bit to get through. We've just hit the 1 hour mark, so typically we would stop. We can go another up to 30 minutes. The guys have both said that they're okay to do that, so we'll try to get through as many as we can, but yeah, we may not quite get there, and if we do, I apologise for that. We can try and get to it another time. Alright, so moving on, we got the character controllers currently implemented in recent PA sessions. Character movement, camera control, etc. is fantastic. One of the best I've seen in an MMO. How long did it take to get this put together, and could you share any insight on the creation process?
So that's sort of my baby. When I first joined the team, I was sort of underwhelmed by the character controller we had, the animations and the jumping and stuff. So I guess I just sort of rebuilt it, and I showed it off to the team, and that was what we went with. I'm not sure how else to say it. That was just nice. It was a passion project. I did it in my free time and then showed it off, and that was the new controller.
Yeah, awesome, man. Okay, so with Pantheon being developed with Unity engine, has the dev team looked into new DOTS/ECS programming? I've seen vastly improved performance benchmarks using DOTS and ECS, though it is still in preview. Do you see this being used in Pantheon in the future or post-release?
Oh yeah, no, like I said before, we're already making heavy use of it in everywhere possible. Architecting anything that makes sense to be data oriented is being jobified and burst compiled. The hot paths that we have in the code will be jobified and burst compiled for sure. The entire UDP layer of the new network library, from serialization, deserialization, socket pulling, everything is jobified and burst compiled. We moved our socket layer into pure C and externed all of those methods so that we can burst compile everything leading up to them. Even the UDP socket calls are in burst compiled jobified code at this point. So we're making heavy use of it.
Awesome, man. And just for clarification, it's jobified, not jopified. But no, it's right.
Nah, I think jopified is just fine.
Currently, we can see ground loot that spawns in like apples, mushrooms, walnuts. Is it still planned to have the game set up to allow players to drop things into the game world? And is this a complicated process to program for?
We probably won't have player dropped items. Honestly, it's an intangible where you can't. You can plan for a number of players on a zone. You can't plan for a number of players getting together and saying, let's all drop 1,000 items on the ground. Like, it just doesn't generally work out that well.
Yeah. I remember in Skyrim collecting all the forks and spoons and apples and putting them in my apartment, and then doing a full radar and watching the whole thing crash.
Yes.
It's good fun for about 3 seconds until you lock up and crash, but you don't
and
want
then
that.
you do that in an MMO and you lock up and crash the whole server.
Every single person suffers because of your fun, so
yeah,
got to be careful with that. Alright, so this is for both of you, even if you can't get 3. What are the top 3 issues with the Unity engine that you've run into? Let's start with Kyle.
Editor performance, by far, in a way, is the number one issue that I have with it at scale. It doesn't, at least in the 2019 cycle. There's been ups and downs, I'd say, with Unity and the editor performance at scale. depending on which version you're using, time of year, whatever it ends up being. But that's always been a huge issue of mine. God, I don't have. I'd say the next one's probably Mechanim. It's a trash animation system in general.
Yep.
I would love to write my own, but that's just not going to happen. No time for that.
We've already split your
I'm not sure. What do you think, Rob? What's number 3?
Well, since we're dumping on Unity, let's keep going. I'd say Unity's lighting is probably pretty inferior, but we're hopefully going to HDRP or just SRP in general. That's going to change, but standard Unity's lighting is not very good compared to the
render
competition.
looks like a PlayStation 2 game for sure.
Yeah. In general, though, I don't really have that much to complain about. It does crash occasionally, which but then with the size of this project,
right?
Yeah, I mean our project's about 400 gig at the moment, isn't it? So
yeah, roughly plus library.
It's a lot for Unity process, considering let's face it, Unity is pretty much a mobile creation system, like mobile games focused system. I mean they're trying to change that as well, but it's not really designed for the scale of game that we're doing, but they are improving all the time. Unity 2020 is going to be a lot better.
Oh yeah, I've already ported a lot of stuff over there to just test the general performance of the editor in 2020. It's vastly improved.
Yeah,
we can't move everyone over there to it yet, but it's going to be a nice improvement. Oh man,
yeah,
it feels a lot better.
I know it sounds like we're just completely bagging on Unity, but it is definitely a very, very easy engine to use. It's just like any large-scale system that needs to account for any type of game that anyone wants to do. They have to do some compromises. It's not specifically built for MMOs. So, but anyway, we'll carry on, and I'm sure we'll make a great system.
And look, anyone who uses something, as much as you guys do, you're gonna, wear it out and find problems in it and little, quality of life things that are annoying. So it's not ragging completely on Unity. It's just you guys work every
at something
day
like
with this.
Pro Tools, like there's industry standard tools all over the place that are hot garbage.
Yeah, exactly. I had to the grapevine. We were transferring everything from Unity to the new Unreal Engine 5, weren't we? Just going to redo it all, like.
Oh yeah.
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
So I saw that demo the other day, and a couple of the community members in different platforms were saying, "Hey, have you guys thought about switching?" I'm like, it doesn't quite work like that, but yeah, cool. It does look amazing, but wow,
it looks incredible.
Yeah, but switching Pantheon from Unity to that would be just
It's actually the first time I've felt like I've looked at something that was truly next gen in maybe like 8 years.
100%. It looked amazing.
Yeah.
The lighting, the rock formation, using the Remapping, like that was just crazy. Yeah, but
if we were to do that, then Pantheon 2040, here we come.
Yeah, it's more to
start from scratch.
Pantheon 2077, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
It would look amazing, though.
Yeah, it would look incredible. Okay,
run at 30 FPS on a 3080.
Yeah, 30 if you're lucky. That's on a beast. All right, being able to remap key bindings to any key on the keyboard is a big quality of life feature for many players. Is there something that is challenging to program? When in the development process, is this quality of life feature slated to be implemented?
A lot of stuff can be rebound. I'm not sure. I haven't actually worked on that system too much, so I'm not sure. Is there some limitations with it? I'm not actually sure. I don't think I can answer that.
We do have key remapping.
Yeah, we rewrote it not so long ago, but it's been available in, at least the last couple of pre-alpha sessions, I believe, that you could remap it. I mean, you can even remap to any mouse button that you want.
Yeah. And macros.
So maybe
and
maybe they just found there could be some potential still bugs in there, but as far as I know, you can remap to anything. at this point.
I think they mean, are we expanding on it or anything? But it's already in the game right now.
There's one thing, I play healers generally in MMOs. There's a requirement in my book to have hovercasts for heals, so you can just hover over a target and hit a button, and it'll cast
awesome
on them. That's something that I personally guarantee I will implement, because I can't heal without it.
Yeah, man, I'm the same. I play a lot of my main ults or very second close classes are healers to my DPS, and yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's nice.
All right, so do first-person and third-person views create different programming challenges? Are there special challenges that first-person views create? And will the field of view be able to be adjusted in first-person? So if so, what sort of challenges does this create? So I think, like, FOV 90 or 70 or 120, like, can we adjust that? And is there any kind of challenges in first and third?
Obviously, rendering in first person, you've got to fade out characters and not show the inside of the face scary view that you kind of see in games sometimes. Get the inside of the teeth and stuff like that.
The eyeballs.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's not super hard to deal with. Like, we have that in game right now. What was the other part of the question?
Field of view adjustable. So like FOV 90, 70, whatever.
Yeah, that's something we can implement. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a very simple thing to implement. I'm not sure if we will, though.
That's something Pantheon would. That's the kind of programming I was talking about. That's a very basic, like an ini file kind of, just mucking around at the back end or something you could change like that, I would assume, with Pantheon or most games.
It would be a very simple thing to implement if we wanted to have that be tweakable.
Just pop a slider in or something.
Yeah.
I would just add that this isn't purely directed at that, but anytime we implement a feature similar to that, we just always have to double check and see if there's any exploits that can happen, like, for instance, seeing around walls, if you change your field of vision to be field of view to be too narrow or something. So it probably just has to go through the design pipeline just to make sure that it's not exploitable. And I just can't see why we couldn't add it to the settings if enough people wanted it.
Good stuff. And the next question oh no, they're asking about an FOV slider, so same question. All right, so is there, in case there is extra... a few questions. I should have read ahead. All right, when you work on the network stack, does it feel like you're doing something new and exciting? If so, in what way?
Oh, yeah. Especially with the jobification and burst compiler stuff. I've done lots of networking previously. I've never done data-oriented networking, so architecting your memory that will be accessed in a way that fits with Unity's burst compiler and job system. That's somewhat new to me, and it's been impressive, the kind of performance wins that you can get by following those kinds of patterns. That's been super exciting for me.
Yeah,
if you want to hear Kyle giggle like a schoolgirl talk about network code, it's his thing, and he lights up like a Christmas tree every time you want to talk about networking in MMO. So
it truly is what keeps me going. I really do enjoy networking.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Have either of you pulled any practical jokes on any VR team members, or any on you that you'd like to share?
It's a bit hard when half the team is on one side of the world and the other half. I mean, it's not like you can go and do like an office chair trick or something like that.
You'd be pretty impressive if you could.
Yeah, sometimes we do April Fool's kind of jokes on Skype, but like most people can see through those, so it's tough. It's tough.
We do little jokes stuff inside. I do it with the CM team, but it's more annoying to them than anything, pretending something happens and it hasn't, or just being a smart ass typically for a bit of a laugh. But the guys are all have great humours, like great sense of humour, so it's mainly just jokes and stuff like that instead of practical kind of like pranks or anything like that. All right, this question is: Joppa has talked about how amazing you both are. Is it true? I can confirm 100% it is true. They are both amazing. I know they're not going to answer that, but yes, that is correct.
I can also confirm.
There you go, Robert. All right, what are some things your team has done during the refactor that allows for easier onboarding, assuming the programming team will eventually expand?
So we've moved away from how would you say it's spaghetti code? I don't know how else you can say it. There's event-based systems for every part of the game. You can subscribe to events. You can get information about when things happen without having to go in and write a bunch of code yourself. So a junior can come on and get a task that says implement this thing, and all they really need to do is reach out to these 3 or 4 systems that are needed, subscribe to a few events, and deal with those events when they come in. It's a lot less work to get a complex feature up off the ground because we have solid foundations to build upon. We've got things that will give you an event reliably. You can subscribe to it. Now the thing that you're building is going to be reliable because the thing that it's built upon is reliable, if that makes sense. It's a layering process of something that works built upon something else that works, so the new thing has to work because it's built upon things that work.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah, cool.
That was a very technical analysis of it. I was going to add that we are getting to the point, before we put all of these measures in place, the underlying systems, just by the way it was designed, it was kind of designed like it was a rolling demo, if you will. We kept adding things to impress investors or impress you guys, and it wasn't built on a structure that was easily scalable, as I've mentioned before. And now we're getting to a point where it's so stable that we can even start creating documentation for junior programmers to start and hit the ground running, because one of the most time-consuming things is onboarding someone, and it would take a lot of time away from either Kyle or I to kind of teach them the ropes and to get them used to the system. But it's been stripped back to a degree now where it's very easy to understand the code, and like I said, we can start creating some surface level documentation so that it doesn't put such a burden on Kyle and I, and we can both be still working at full speed and just have like a cursory amount of interaction to answer questions and stuff. So I think that's one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, awesome. Good answers, guys. Okay, so entity counts have been mentioned in regards to the new network stack. Just for clarification, how would you define entities for the common audience?
A network-enabled object. So something that can send and receive network messages, generally.
Perfect.
Yeah, if it's something that multiple people have to see, and it has to change and be the same on everyone's machine at the same time, then it's an entity. So if it's something that's just static in the level, or something that can animate on your machine, it doesn't matter if I see it differently to Kyle, that doesn't have to be an entity. But if it has to be synchronized across everyone and see the same thing, then it's an entity. Would that be
exactly?
Yeah.
Awesome. Good job,
Yeah,
guys.
player UI is a non-entity. That's correct. Yep.
It's kind of a double up, but can you quickly name a fun tool or system your team has recently added or updated that the design team especially loves?
Ooh, man, the optimizations that went into Odin recently have been huge. We got some pretty big wins in terms of table refreshes, so just loading data in our tools, essentially. Reload times, deleting, adding items, things like that. Got a nice performance boost, and we got some rave reviews about that.
I think also, I think we can talk about this. The ability loadouts is something that we just added recently that I know Joppa is super excited about. So, yeah, that's a new feature that we just put in that's It's been really good.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Awesome. All right, so here's the last 2 questions I have on the forums, and then we'll go to some live ones for the last 10 minutes. So there is now a list of items that need to be completed before alpha can begin. If you can share, how much have you guys been able to accomplish so far? And has there been any discussion on how the banking service is going to work?
I don't think we can discuss on alpha roadmaps, but we have discussed banks, and we have a design doc for them. It's fairly standard for alpha, though. It's just banking items and currency being shared across different bank vendors. You open a bank vendor and you get your bank items no matter which bank vendor you open, right? So you can go to a different city and get that. I think it's all fairly standardized stuff for alpha that we have planned in terms of banking.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, like Jopa, with the alpha roadmap and stuff like that, we will delve a little bit more into that probably as time goes on. And as we get closer to it, you'll hear us start ramping up. We're not going to be quiet on that stuff. Once we're ready to go with it, we'll be screaming from the rooftop. And yeah, it's something that excites the entire team. This is what we work so hard for, and what we can't wait to get out to you guys to see how it performs in real time. So when that's ready,
okay, sorry. There's a bean to drop. There is an alpha roadmap, though.
Well, that's right. And they know this.
Internal and external.
Yes.
They've only seen the external one, though.
No, that's right. Very true. So yes, we do have our internal roadmap as well, which is going swimmingly. This is about all we can say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so last question. What would you suggest to someone who wants to start learning programming and wants to work in the game industry? How about we go with you, Rob?
Yep, I'd say watch a lot of YouTube tutorials, start making lots of demos, and stick with it. You can't expect to program overnight. It takes a long time to understand it and to master it. You'll always be learning. Like even Kyle and I, we're not masters at it. We're always constantly learning. I'm constantly learning off Kyle. In fact, he doesn't let anything go into the game that isn't super optimized. So I'm always learning new techniques. Yeah. And I appreciate that and love him for it. So I'm constantly learning, and just it's a lot of fun. You just got to get over the hurdle of that initial learning curve, where it just always seems like an insurmountable task. You will get there. Just keep watching. YouTube is such a great resource for just learning tricks and techniques and from start to finish. So that would be my advice.
Awesome, man. Is there anything you'd like to add?
There's, I think, a bit of a brain hack for learning programming as well. And I think people look at programming as kind of a boring, mundane, sit down and study this thing, and eventually I will be able to make the thing that I want to make. I would try and reframe it a little bit and find simple things that are actually interesting to build now to keep yourself engaged. If you're just following a book or following a video doing terminal programming and seeing numbers pop out on a black and white screen, it won't, at least for me, it wasn't motivating enough. It wasn't enough instant gratification to keep me going, to keep learning, if that makes sense. I needed something a bit more hands-on. So when I found something that I wanted to make that was in my reach, I would make that. I wouldn't just sit down and do something because it's a tutorial that somebody told me to do. It had to be interesting to keep me engaged.
Awesome, man. Very good advice from both of you. Thank you. All right, well, that's it from the thread questions. So let's take it live. If you guys, we've got about 5-10 minutes or so left. If you guys want to tag my name, please, so it pops up for me highlighted, I'll read out as many as I can for the guys, and we'll get through a few more before we finish up. Has any work been done yet on a /follow for in-game? I know
no work has been done on it specifically.
No, and I know the ramifications behind this, and I know why it's been asked. There's a lot of people about botting and boxing and stuff like that. A follow stops that from happening. So we're aware of that. We're yeah, mindful of that as we go forward. Whether we have one or not is still to be decided, but yeah, we'll keep that
Speaking
in
of botting, I just implemented a pretty sophisticated bot last week. It simulates it. It's actually in response to the crashing that we had in the last PA session. We got a pretty sophisticated player bot now that can run around, find NPCs, run up to them, cast abilities, train levels, add abilities to their bar, all kinds of stuff actually.
Nice. I'll take 2, mate, so I can start boxing my rogue and power leveling. Start gold farming before we get to alpha.
if you're running around in the next PA session and you accidentally, well, if you see some NPCs or looks like NPCs doing weird things, it might be some bot code that we accidentally left in there.
All right. Are there any new or upcoming Unity features that you guys are excited about?
Yes. So Animancer is a new animation system that I've got my eyes on. I'm not sure where it's going to go yet, but like I said before, I think Mechanim is kind of a joke of an animation system. So anything that can replace that would be great.
Yeah. What about you, Rob?
I don't really know too much about Unity's up-and-coming features, its roadmap. I'm just so ready to jump onto Unity 2020 that, I just can't wait for us to make that jump and get in there, because there's just so many improvements from a developer perspective that, yeah, it's just going to be so important to us.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I don't know if you've all talked about internally about adding this or not, but how difficult is it to implement some kind of music system with ABC files like Lord of the Rings Online did?
ABC files like layered music that can like work with each other?
I'm thinking so. It's just a capital ABC.
That's I'm not sure if we've talked about this, but we have some audio people that are specializing in doing things like that. They compose music, layered music for games. They're doing all of our sound effects and stuff. It's not a done deal. It's sort of a trial. We're sort of seeing if we fit together, but that's in the works right now. So that's something that will be happening. Yeah, layered music.
All right, that is a big beam too. So I love that. All right, this is a totally naive question, but I've observed what seems to be now we can develop the game. Until now, we were blocked by ... changes in staffing or technology over time in these Delve Roundtables. Is this normal? Look, I can say yes, it's a very high turnover. You guys have both worked in the industry and can talk to this better than I can, but I even just as a CM and coming from the community, it's an extremely high turnover industry, especially when you're a startup company or crowdfunded, and that's just normal. There's no negative there. It looks bad. If we announced every single person that came on board and left, it'd probably look horrific to the outside, but it's not. It's a completely normal way of life for this kind of thing. Do you guys have anything to add with that, with your experience of companies, gaming turnovers?
I think the question is also maybe not specifically only about staffing or technology, but now we can develop the game. Until now we were blocked by. That could also just be technical debt. It could be like Rob said before, the game was sort of a rolling demo, where it was just being tagged on, stuff tacked on to get it working, as opposed to stepping back and building frameworks for future support, right?
Gotcha.
So that's a huge part of where issues came in, I think, in addition to staffing and technology changes and time and stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah,
I mean, the whole build and show as you go is not really conducive to getting a game out really quickly, because you can't ever put the game in a state where it's broken for a long period of time. You have to kind of retrofit systems without breaking anything, because you always need to be showing something to either the pre-alpha crowd or to an investor or publisher or whatever. But typically you're just not this exposed to the public for such a long period of time, and that has its toll. I'm not saying that I would have done anything differently. This is the way that Pantheon development rolled out, but that it's just part of exposing yourself. You get to see the refactors when most of the time in normal games companies you wouldn't. That would all be hidden until the very last thing when the game is even announced, and then publicity starts up. But it's just one of those things that happens in every games company. I've been involved in many companies over 30 years, and it's always been the same. It's like you get to a point where you just can't go any further without rewriting to get it the way that it needs to be for production, and that's just a hit that we have to take. And I know it's taking an extremely long time to get this game out. I don't think anyone would argue about that. But if we were just keep going on and getting something out just to satiate the crowd, so that it's not taking as long as it is, you would be extremely disappointed in the end result, because there would be so many bugs with it. It just wouldn't be the game that you're hoping it would be, unless we did, it took the time that it's taking, and we do what we have to do to get it to the line, the right way.
Great explanation, Rob, and thank you to Kyle. That I misread that. I leaned more towards the changing in staffing or tech, but I understand now that it was like roadblocks because of changes in staffing and that. So yeah, thanks for that clarification. Great job, guys. All right, so how's the work on damage meters going? I know Kyle's a fan of meters, so am I.
Yeah, so it's implemented, but hidden unless you're a GM.
Love it.
So after a fight's over, you'll get a detailed breakdown of all of the healing and damage that occurred, how many ticks the fight occurred over the seconds that it happened, how long the fight occurred, all that stuff. It gives you a detailed breakdown for GMs. It's just a matter of exposing that.
Yeah, awesome, man. Look, that's another controversial one, but it's valuable information for some people who want to better themselves or min-max or perform at a higher level, and that information is it helps them progress and helps them fix where they're going wrong. For other people, you don't need to worry about it. Just turn it off.
Right now, it's helping QA a ton, right? Yes. To verify that things are working properly. So that's why it's in. It's not so much for the gameplay side of it, but for verifying that things are working properly.
That's right. I mean, like internally, it's invaluable for us across multiple teams, but just for the community, it's if you want to use it and we make it available, fantastic. Knock yourself out. You can help better yourself. If you don't, then turn it off. Don't worry about it. It's not going to.
If we don't do it, somebody else will.
That's right. Someone will make a third-party one anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so have either of you guys played the game, Drone, the game, which is done all in Unity?
I haven't played it, but I've actually looked at some videos of it. Maybe a year or so ago, I believe. I think they even did a Unity forum post with it. It had fairly good graphics, if I recall.
Yeah, cool. Did you say anything about that, Rob? You don't play much games, man. You're too invested in the Pantheon game.
Never heard of it. I probably should, though. Probably should get out of my bubble and experience the world a bit more.
Not yet. All right, did they mention anything about what was crashing the zones in the last PA session? Do you want to talk a little bit more about this?
Sure, yeah. So it was related to the newer AI targeting code. So Rob mentioned it before, the ability loadouts that went in. So AIs can now say, for like a blink strike that an AI might have, they can say, select the closest healer to me with, below 50% mana and is this race. Like, you can do complex targeting now as an NPC for any given ability. And there was an exception being thrown down the line there that was blowing up the main server loop. So as soon as that exception would be thrown, the entire realm would essentially go down.
Yeah, sweet.
But it should be fixed.
Yeah, you guys were onto that quick smart.
Yeah.
All I heard was it's Kyle's fault.
Yeah, definitely my fault.
Cole's fault, and he fixed it. All right,
that's why we wrote that bot, actually, was to identify that issue so that we could artificially load the servers up and make sure that it was fixed.
Yeah, nice. I remember reading in dev chat that you were saying. Someone goes, "Oh, only if you've got the time," because you were talking about bots, and it's already done. It's like, wow, okay. All right, is VPN/NetBIOS tunnels possible to use on client for security and performance gains?
Not for security or performance gains, but it's usable.
Yeah, cool.
I thought we'll have to check that, but I thought that our authentication calls didn't work with VPNs.
Really? That's
I think,
news to me.
but I have to check. Well, it certainly was a problem in the past. I don't know if when we went over to the new authentication that it got fixed, but if anyone's having a problem, maybe it's to do with the VPN.
If that's the case, then we definitely need to fix that, because VPN use is vital for network games in certain places.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
Probably shouldn't mention that, but I just thought just in case next session someone said, was on a VPN and said, "Oh, the VPN's okay," and I don't know. I thought there was some problems that we were having, but we'll sort it out anyway.
Yeah, cool. And that might help some people fix issues that weren't able to get in, because I know there were a couple of them, so that could potentially be it. So that might be something helpful for them to use with CS, customer service, in a ticket or something. All right, last question. This is referring back to the parser again. So what about party damage, heal breakdown, etc.? I'm assuming we could make that as detailed or as bare bones as we wanted to.
So for the damage meters, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so it gives you DPS, overall damage, healing done, and healing per second right now.
Perfect. And I'm sure you could add or remove stuff from there if you wanted to for
sure.
Use.
It's super primitive. It just prints it out in the combat log and stuff. It's not like a floating window that you can drag around with bars that adjust or anything like that. It's very, very primitive at the moment. The data is there and it works, but it's super primitive still.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. That ran a little bit over. That's an hour and a half, an hour and 37 minutes. That was fantastic. I knew that would take a little bit longer, but you guys are much loved, and that was fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you guys would like to add towards the end before we wrap it up?
I got nothing. Thanks for having us.
Oh, my pleasure, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that thanks everyone for coming on and listening. I thought that listening to programmers talk would probably need to take about 10 minutes, but you guys proved me wrong. Any other thing I wanted to say was just a big shout out to our whole VR team. There's lots of people you don't hear about because, they just do their job and keep their noses down, and it's a collaborative effort. So everyone from our IT team to QA to everyone, admin, the whole team is just doing an amazing job, and thanks everyone for doing everything that they do.
Absolutely, man. Well said. There's a lot of people that I'm trying to get them all out. I'm trying to grab them and drag them from out under logs and wherever they're hiding in departments. And trust me, I will get you all. But one at a time, get them on and give them a bit of a spotlight that they deserve and show them off and all the great work that they do. But unfortunately, it's once a month, so it's a slow process, but I will get around to everyone. Like you, good sir, finally getting you on, which was great. Thank you both very, very much. We'll wrap it up there. I will upload this in the next half an hour, and chuck it up on YouTube with a link just to VIPs and champions for the first week. And then after that, I'll release it to the public and announce it publicly across all channels.
And minus, I still haven't forgiven you yet, so you better make up for never mentioning me before.
He mentioned something back in the comments earlier. I saw it about how he owed you one and he was going to break something down and get it out. Put a big mention in, a shout out for you, Rob.
Every time I've watched his stream and I never get mentioned, I'm just a little sad face. So I'll make up for that.
It's all right, mate. I'll stalk him. Yes, make sure he gets it up. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you to all the VIPs that came out. Absolutely love you guys, and can't wait to see the next one. Take care, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.